Bruce Willis wasn't supposed to cry, not today. He had walked into Westwood Hills nursing home under the quiet gray light of an overcast Los Angeles morning, wearing his usual cap and a discreet pair of sunglasses. This wasn't a press event. He hadn't told his publicist. No cameras, no interviews. Just a quiet visit to drop off some care packages and spend an hour with a few residents who rarely got visitors. He liked doing this sort of thing. Always had. It reminded him of simpler times, growing up in New Jersey. Back when he was just a skinny kid helping his dad at the welding shop, not an action star with a name everyone knew. The receptionist, a kind woman named Karen, offered him coffee. He politely declined and handed her a box full of snacks, books, blankets, and handwritten cards. She thanked him with a genuine smile and gestured down the hallway. "You remember the way?" "Yeah," he said. "I remember." Room 208 was at the end of the West Wing, tucked between the chapel and the little garden where the residents sometimes sat in the sun. He'd been there a few times before. That's where they usually put the patients with more advanced conditions: dementia, Alzheimer's, stroke recovery. He wasn't sure what pulled him toward that room again. Maybe it was the memory of the woman from his last visit, the one with the soft voice and the faraway look in her eyes. She'd said something strange to him last time, something that had stuck with him for months afterward. "You have your father's mouth," she'd whispered, barely audible, "but your mother's hands." At the time, he'd brushed it off. He got that kind of thing a lot from older folks: confused memories, faces mistaken for long-lost sons or husbands. But now, standing outside room 208, he felt something deeper, a nervous flutter in his chest. He knocked gently and pushed the door open. The woman was sitting by the window, staring out at the garden. Her silver hair was combed neatly, and a light blue blanket was folded over her knees. She turned slowly as he entered, her eyes cloudy but alert. "Hi there," Bruce said softly. "I brought some gifts today. Mind if I sit for a bit?" She didn't answer right away, just kept looking at him. Then she tilted her head. "I know you," she said. Bruce smiled politely. "A lot of people say that." "No, not like that." Her voice trembled. "You were born in Penns Grove, March 19th, 1955. Your mother was Evelyn, but that wasn't her real name." Bruce froze. Every hair on his arm stood on end. He stepped closer, cautiously. "How do you know that?" Tears welled up in the woman's eyes. Her hands reached toward him, shaking. "Because I'm your mother, Bruce." I've waited so long." The room seemed to spin. For a moment, Bruce couldn't move, couldn't breathe. His hands dropped to his sides. "That's not possible," he whispered. She nodded slowly, her face crumbling. "They told me you died. They told me my baby died during birth. I never stopped looking. I never stopped." He sat down hard in the chair beside her, overwhelmed by 1,000 emotions he couldn't begin to name. She reached for his hand. "Let me explain everything, son. Please." He didn't pull away. And deep down, something in him, something buried beneath years of fame and heartbreak, started to believe her. Bruce didn't say anything at first. The sounds of the hallway outside, distant conversation, a squeaky food cart, the buzz of fluorescent lights, faded into the background. All he could focus on was the trembling hand wrapped around his own. "I don't understand," he finally said. "My mother's name was Evelyn. She raised me. She died years ago." The woman nodded slowly. "Evelyn?" "Yes." That was the name she used. "But she wasn't your biological mother. I was." Bruce blinked, staring at her. "You're saying I was adopted?" "You were taken," she said quietly. He leaned back, stunned. "That doesn't make any sense." Her eyes dropped to her lap, where her fingers curled into the blanket. "I was 17. My family didn't approve of the man I loved, your father. When I got pregnant, they sent me away to a home in Delaware. I gave birth alone, no one by my side. They told me you didn't make it, that there was a complication. I begged to see your body. They said it wasn't necessary, that it would only traumatize me." She looked up at him now, her eyes filled with both fury and heartbreak. "I believed them for years, until I saw a photo of you in a magazine in the 90s. You looked like him, like both of us, and then You had the birthmark, behind your right shoulder. Bruce's heart kicked in his chest. The birthmark. A strange triangular shape, like a smudge of ink. He'd always had it. No one in his family had it too. He didn't know what to say. She continued. I started writing letters. To your agents, your foundation, your publicist. No one ever responded, and I was too ashamed to go public. What would people say? That I was some old woman chasing a lie? Her voice cracked. Then 2 months ago, they moved me here. I heard one of the nurses say your name, that you sometimes visited, and I prayed you would walk through that door again. Bruce looked down, trying to steady his breathing. This is too much. I know, she whispered. I know it sounds crazy. He stood, pacing the small room. Photographs lined her dresser, old black and white images of people he didn't recognize. A photo of a young girl in a 1950s dress, standing in front of a white farmhouse. Is that you? He asked, pointing. She nodded. That was taken 2 weeks before I was sent away. Bruce stepped closer to the photo, squinting. Something about her face, the set of her eyes. It was there, subtle but real. Why would Evelyn never tell me? She probably didn't know. Families used to do things like that, quietly. Arrange adoptions, hide pregnancies. Especially when it was about protecting reputation. Bruce sat again, his legs suddenly weak. I'm 70 years old, and I'm just now finding this out. She reached out again. This time, he didn't hesitate. I don't want anything from you, she said softly. I just wanted to see my son again before I go, to know you're okay, that you lived a full life. Bruce swallowed hard. He looked at the woman, her face weathered but kind, her voice soft like the lullabies he barely remembered. Something cracked open inside him. He gently squeezed her hand. What's your name? Margaret, she said, smiling through tears. But I used to go by Maggie. He let out a shaky breath. Okay, Maggie, I think we've got a lot to talk about. Outside, the clouds had started to part. Their thin shaft of sunlight slid across the floor. The next day, Bruce returned. He wasn't sure why he couldn't stay away. He'd spent the night pacing his house in Brentwood, the TV on but forgotten, his phone ringing unanswered. Thoughts swirled like storm clouds. Evelyn's laugh, his childhood birthdays, a box of letters he'd once found in her closet, addressed to the agency. Now he wondered, what agency? Margaret was sitting in the same chair when he walked in, a small paperback book in her lap. You came back, she said, smiling with gentle surprise. I had questions, Bruce replied, lowering himself into the chair beside her. Too many to leave unanswered. She nodded, folding her hands in her lap. I expected that. Bruce leaned forward. Did you ever try to come find me? Like, really find me? She took a breath. After I saw that magazine photo, I hired someone, a retired journalist from Philly. He tracked down bits and pieces, birth records sealed, names changed, addresses blurred by time. He found out that a woman named Evelyn Harmon adopted a baby boy in New Jersey in 1955. That's all he could find. Evelyn Harmon, Bruce whispered. My mum. Margaret watched him carefully. Did she ever talk about your birth? No. She always said I was a surprise. That my dad cried when he first saw me. Your father, she said softly. He was named David, David Moore. He was 21, a mechanic. My father hated him, said he was trash. Bruce blinked. David Moore. That name doesn't mean anything to me. It wouldn't, she said. He died in '58 motorcycle crash. Bruce felt a jolt. So, I never had a chance to know him. Margaret looked away. He never knew about you. My parents made sure of that. Silence settled between them, heavy with everything that had been taken. Bruce stared out the window at the wind pushing through the garden. A nurse walked by, her shoes squeaking against the tile. I keep thinking about Evelyn, he finally said. She loved me. She was my mother, no matter what. But now, Margaret placed a hand gently on his arm. You don't have to choose. I don't want to replace her. I just want a piece of the truth back before it's gone. Bruce nodded slowly. "You ever have more kids?" he asked. Margaret smiled faintly. "No, I tried. Miscarried twice. I think maybe it wasn't meant to be, or maybe losing you took more from me than I realized." Bruce looked at her. For a long time, she wasn't trying to manipulate him. There was no script, no camera, just a woman telling him a truth she'd carried for decades. He opened his wallet, pulled out a small, worn photo. It was of him as a baby, sitting on Evelyn's lap. "She always kept this in her jewelry box," he said. "It's the only baby photo I have." Margaret took it gently in her hands. Tears welled in her eyes. "That's me," she whispered. Bruce looked at her in disbelief. "That's you." She nodded. "They must have taken a photo before they handed you over, changed the background. But I remember that day. That sweater." Bruce leaned back, stunned. This wasn't just a story. This was real. The threads of his life were unraveling and weaving into something new. Margaret handed the photo back. "I'm sorry for what you lost, for what I lost." He nodded, emotion rising in his throat. "Maybe we can still find something," he said, "in the time we've got left." She smiled. "That's all I ever wanted." Over the next few weeks, Bruce visited Margaret every other day. He kept it quiet, just between them, no press, no statements. He told his daughters, Rumer and Scout, and their reactions had been mixed, confused, protective, cautious, but supportive in their own way. "If she's really your mum," Scout had said, "then maybe this is part of your healing too." Bruce wasn't sure what healing looked like at 70. But sitting beside Margaret in that quiet room, with its lavender walls and the scent of chamomile tea, he began to understand. They talked about small things at first. Music, her favorite song from the 50s, the way her mother used to bake cinnamon rolls on Sundays, how she once danced barefoot in a Pennsylvania rainstorm when she was 18 just to make a boy laugh. Bruce told her about Die Hard, not in detail, just the funny parts, how he'd almost broken a rib doing a stunt, how fans still sent him toy guns in the mail. Margaret didn't know much about action films, but she laughed when he described being lowered through an air duct with a harness that pinched in all the wrong places. "I wish your father could have seen that," she said one afternoon. "He would have loved it." Bruce leaned back in his chair, watching the sunlight spill across her hands. "You really loved him, didn't you?" "I did," she said, "with all I had, but I was too young to fight the world back then." One day, she handed him a faded envelope. "I've been holding on to this since I saw your face on that magazine cover. I didn't know if I'd ever give it to you." Inside was a letter, written in her delicate, careful handwriting. It began with, "To my son, if you're out there." Bruce read it in silence. It was full of things she never said aloud, regrets, dreams, memories of her pregnancy, the smell of lilacs in the maternity home, the way he kicked at night, just under her ribs. She wrote about the moment they took him from her and how empty the room felt after. When he finished reading, he didn't speak. He just reached across the bed and took her hand. On another visit, Margaret brought up Evelyn. "I want you to know," she said, "I don't hate her. If anything, I'm grateful." Bruce exhaled slowly. "She was strict, but she gave me a good life. She worked hard. She believed in doing things right. She raised you into a kind man," Margaret said, squeezing his fingers. "I'm proud of that, even if I wasn't the one there." They began going through old photos together. Bruce brought in albums from his childhood, faded pictures of backyard birthdays, Halloween costumes, high school plays. Margaret studied each one with tears in her eyes, like she was piecing together years she never got to live. "She made sure you were loved," she said once, her voice trembling. "I see it in these." One afternoon, Bruce brought her outside. She hadn't been to the garden in weeks. The nurses bundled her in a shawl and Bruce guided her gently down the path. They sat on a wooden bench beneath a jacaranda tree, lavender petals falling around them like quiet confetti. Margaret looked up at the sky. "I never thought I'd feel this again," she whispered. "The sun, my son." Bruce smiled softly. "We've still got time." She nodded, resting her head on his shoulder, and for the first time in decades they both allowed themselves to believe it was true. It was raining when Bruce got the call. He had just returned from the grocery store, paper bags in his arms, when his phone buzzed in his jacket pocket. The name on the screen read, "Westwood Hills Nursing." His heart sank before he even answered. "Mr. Willis," said the nurse, voice soft. "You might want to come in today. Margaret's asking for you." He didn't even take his shoes off. The groceries sat forgotten on the kitchen counter as he rushed through traffic under a sky that wept like it already knew. Room 208 was dimly lit when he entered. The window shades were drawn, the air quiet except for the low hum of a machine monitoring her vitals. Margaret looked smaller now, her cheeks sunken, her voice barely above a whisper. But when she saw him, she smiled. "I knew you'd come." Bruce sat beside her, taking her hand gently. "I'm here, Mom." She closed her eyes for a moment, holding that word. Mom, the one she'd never gotten to hear from him before this year. "I don't have much time," she said, "but I wanted to give you something before I go." Bruce leaned closer. "What is it?" She motioned to the bedside drawer. He opened it and found a small folded cloth. Inside was a tiny silver locket, old but polished. He opened it. Inside, a photo. One side was her, age 17. The other was a baby, red-faced and squinting. "That's the only photo I had of you," she whispered. "They let me hold you once, just once. I told the nurse to take the picture even though I wasn't supposed to. I kept it hidden all these years." Bruce stared at it, his throat tight. "I don't know what happens after this," she continued, "but knowing you found me, that you believed me, it healed something I thought was broken forever." Tears welled in Bruce's eyes. "I should have found you sooner." "No," she said, shaking her head slightly. "You found me exactly when I needed you." He stayed with her for hours that day, talking when she was awake, holding her hand when she drifted. A few of the nurses came by, whispering their goodbyes. One placed a soft blanket over her legs. Bruce never moved. She passed just after sunset. The rain had stopped. A band of soft gold light pressed against the clouds as the sky cleared. Bruce sat there for a long time, her hand still in his as the room went quiet around them. After the funeral, he kept the locket in a small box on his nightstand. He didn't talk about Margaret in interviews. He didn't write a memoir or tell the tabloids. But he changed subtly. He started attending memory care fundraisers anonymously. He donated under the name M. More. And on the anniversary of the day he met her, he returned to Westwood Hills, sitting quietly in the garden where they once talked beneath the jacaranda. A few years later, during a rare public Q&A, someone asked him what he considered the most unexpected moment of his life. He paused, looked out over the crowd, then said softly, "Finding something I never knew was missing, and realizing it had been waiting for me all along." He didn't elaborate, didn't need to. That moment lived quietly in his heart, just like Margaret. A final gift, unexpected and priceless. If you were touched by this story, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment below. The next video on screen was chosen just for you, and trust me, you're going to love it.